I forgot to hit the mute button. Okay, the unmute. So she picked on me, of course. Yeah, that's typical. But yeah, tonight's episode is about kind of finding your inner strength when it chips it down. When something's not going right, things are going kind of south. Could be a terrible situation, or it could be just a situation that's kind of this isn't going the greatest. It feels kind of dark. I mean, obviously, we keep like a pin comment, reach out to those you haven't heard from. That's a way to reach out to other people if you can, and keep doing that. Especially considering if you went through what I'm talking about tonight, you understand what it's like on the other side of that coin. And if you haven't noticed in the background, yeah, the vaping trucker live is next week. So that's coming up, the fundraiser for him. There'll be more details about that later. The auctions are now live. I will get up that link in the descriptions after the show. I'll get that in there. But International Nude Gardening Day. Well, I mean, that's one way to pull yourself out of a funk. But with gardening is a good way to get out of a funk. I mean, it's a lot of work, but it pays off. So it's kind of a growth thing. But if anybody's ever been in a dark spot where they just can't bring themselves out of it, just keep fighting with the urge to just stay in the darkness and not push through it. A lot of times you'll see people disappear for a while because they get there, and then hopefully they come back to us and we can actually help. Because nobody can help you when you're stuck in that frame of mind where you don't want to reach out for help. So it's another topic that will be a reoccurring one because it happens too often. It's kind of almost like snoring dogs happen. But what happens constantly when you get dark and you feel that close in, say, here's a good example, you lose your job. That's one of the biggest stressors in the world for most people. Lose their job, or perhaps for some reason or another you have to move. Could be the end of a relationship. Those are real huge triggers. And then it could be something minor that just is enough to just, the feather that fell on the pile and collapsed it, or the what is it, the I'm doing the analogy wrong, but I think you know what I'm talking about, where you just takes that one little needle in a haystack that just makes the problem just that much more. Just need that one little. I'm hitting the analogies really bad tonight. Like I said, there's been a lot going on this week. Been really focused on this trucker fundraiser thing. It's going to be a good show. Tune in. It's going to be 24 hours, and it's got a lot of good people sticking together for a really good reason to try and help our own, which is something. Straw that broke the camel's back. That's it. Thank you, Lady Liberty. Sorry, I'm stuck. She's laughing at me over there too. Sorry about this. It's just been a really strange day. But you got to look forward to the next thing. Like yesterday, car broke down. Okay? Could sit there and dwell on it, trying to figure it out. But I'm trying to figure it out, but at the same time, trying to keep a positive note. Things have been going really well all around the community, seeing the community help each other. I want to focus on the positives because that will work its way out. I'll figure something out. Not worried about it. No, Hakuna Matata, no worries. Hopefully it doesn't get a copyright strike. Yeah, by the way, it's Lady Liberty's birthday. If anybody wants to wish her a happy birthday, told her I was going to do this, but she's flipping me off. I'm number one for saying it's her birthday. But you need to not be stuck in that hole, and it's hard to do because when you're in it, you don't feel like reaching out. I've been there before, and the worst thing and last thing you want to do is reach out to others and say, "Hey, I need help." You're like, there's no light. I'm in darkness. It's there, but you just got blinders onto it. You're not looking around hard enough. It's not an easy thing, even in the worst case scenario. Trucker scenario, for one, what he's going through. It's terrible, but he still has a lot of people that care about him. He has a great person there with him right now at all times that really cares about him. There's memories that he can cherish and think about. There's things you can do to keep yourself from feeling that severe negativity, even though it is there. I mean, sometimes you can't avoid it. In that situation, unavoidable. But it's not the end of the world as far as trying to be happy and feel it within yourself to feel the happiness and work through it. You could sit there and just become a pessimist and worry about it and do nothing else but dwell on the sadness. But if you do that, you're just going to make yourself more sad, and that doesn't benefit even you. Enjoy every moment of life while you can, because that's the only way to get through life and not be miserable. There's loss. Life is full of it. Some people are blessed and don't get touched by it much. Good for them. And some people are good at, for some reason, I've seen people do it. There are people that can completely ignore it. I don't like the way that makes the light go off whenever it goes off. It makes it, yeah. Hold on, I can fix that a little. Oh, no, that won't do it. Sorry, guys. All right. So there are ways to get by that, but you have to be willing to do it for yourself. Now, for one, if you feel yourself sinking, let someone know immediately before you get to the point where you can't. And most of the time, this is where the key factor of the problem is it doesn't necessarily take the other person to pull you out of it, but it might take them telling you, oh, by the way, you are there. You are where you were fearful you were going. And it reminds you, oh, okay, then I need to do something to stop it. If you don't think like that, then this is if it's not a sudden thing. Obviously, sudden situations are a little even tougher yet. It's been a long week. You know that, hon. Yeah. So now there are different types of people. I know we have one in here tonight I've seen tonight that he can deal with things in a way that other people can't. And, sometimes that changes as life goes on too. One time, you might be able to get through something your own way, the way it works. And then the very next time, the same situation comes up, but for some reason you're not as strong. Or you're stronger. It goes both ways. Usually you find that if multiple times you go through deep, dark situations, they get worse. It's kind of like think of anything as you're recurring. You kind of almost like a step. You drop a step. It's hard to get back up that step. You just kind of gravity pulls you downward. So each time you're like, it's a little harder to get back up to that farther step, and maybe you'll make it up a step, but you're not making it back up to where you were before. You're only making it part way, and you just got to try and strive to pull yourself up as far as you can. Sometimes a fake smile. I mean, this actually comes. I'm going to give him credit again, Sean Typhoon. Him saying, put on that smile, and eventually that smile might become a real one, and sometimes it does. I have tried it before, and you put on that smile, and you're like, this doesn't feel right. I'm not feeling it. But by the end of the day, if you're hanging out with friends and you're smiling, all of a sudden you find yourself, oh, I'm actually smiling for real. It's not fake anymore. I'm not forcing it. Technically speaking, like he was saying, there's like this muscle thing that your body automatically recognizes a smile as happiness. So it automatically starts to make you feel some of the chemicals and stuff that you would feel in a happy state. I know it sounds a little strange, but you're kind of tricking your body into being happy. Yep. If you replace that N with a B, you get a word you love. Just saying. If you're into that kind of thing, sorry, Duchess, you started it. Derek. Yeah. Now, smiles are also infectious. That's another good point. If you're smiling, other people around you will tend to smile more, and vice versa. If you're around people that smile a lot, you're more likely to smile or go insane. Could happen either way, but hopefully the smile comes first. Sorry, I'm just watching chat a little bit because it was going for a second there, a little faster than I expected. Yeah. And then you got Steven. Derek actually Sorry, she just giggled in the weirdest way. This is not a great night for the professional part of it, but it's a hard subject because I'm trying to instill imbibe the feeling of happiness throughout when you're not feeling it. Because we've had some people lately that are in that spot where they really don't want to reach out, and then you find out about it until after they're feeling better, and they're long since after. So when they were at their darkest hour, they didn't reach out to anyone because they felt so dark. That's actually extremely dangerous. It could be the last time you hear from someone like that. And that's where I step in and I'm trying to change people's minds on the thought process on that. Only because I care about them. I don't want them to go down that deep, dark path and then maybe not be able to pick themselves back up. There's a time when you can still reach out, but that's the time when you have to force yourself to feel that need to reach out, which usually, if you're feeling worthless in a situation, which I've been in there, and you get down to that point, then you don't reach out as much as you should or at all. You wind up in that darkness by yourself, and there's absolutely no way to pick yourself up out of it when you get so far in it. It's like you're falling into this endless pit and you have no ladder, no rope, no way back up. But there is one, but you're not looking for it. You're just letting yourself fall. You get down to the bottom of that pit, and that's usually the end. And you get to that point, it's very unfortunate, but sometimes it's the last time we see someone. I know for people who have lost loved ones through the suicide, you understand this. There are people that may have even been attempted suicide. So understanding how that darkness works to these people is a little more real. And I'm sure there's some that are watching this either now or on replay that understand this. It's ultimately always the bottom goal. Exactly. Believe in oneself. But believing in yourself is not always, is really difficult if you've lost. I would say things just go to hell. You have this moment, and there's no better way to put it than everything just kind of falls apart and you just feel like there's no hope. Why bother? When you're feeling that way, as soon as you can say to yourself, why bother? It's time to reach out. It's something like maybe keep a notebook or something on the wall if you know that you're prone to this. If I said why bother today, it's time for me to talk to somebody. You got to be the one to do that, because it's not always possible for someone else to know what happened to you that day. Because if you were fine the day before, it may be weeks before they start to reach out to you and say, hey, haven't heard from you. And by then, it could be way too late. But it takes something like a reminder like that. I know a lot of people actually, when there's screensavers on, say, their phone or their computers, or it's even a TV, they'll set up screensavers that remind them to be happy and try and do cheerful things, or to remind them of things that are negative. I actually have reminders on me all the time. I have these tattoos. This is Zen. This was actually for my son to try and feel like at peace. And this is Enlightened. My daughter actually picked it out when she was only 4 years old. But she understood things. Oh, no, 6 years old. Sorry, not 4. 6 years old. But she understood things. We'd already talked about it. And she wanted something bright. She knew what enlightened mean, and that's enlightened. That's more the higher. This is when I finally get my sleeves done. One's going to be for those I've lost, and the other one's for moving on. So I even trying to do that in a way that on my own body. But when you feel down, the first thing you do is you tend to put your head down. First thing I see is those tattoos, and it makes me remind me, if I'm feeling down, I either need to reach out or pick myself up. I've gotten better at picking myself up, but for a long time, it was more the reminder to reach out. And that's extremely necessary on all counts. Don't let yourself fall down and not have some kind of safety net of some sort. And that's easier said than done. I know I can preach this and say this all day long, and it won't change the fact that if most of us get in that boat, even myself included, it's possible we might slip through and just, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. Worst thing you can do. It's the worst thing you can do for a relationship too, because if you're in a relationship with someone or you have family, kids, they see that. They see you letting go. They may not always be able to help. You might not be willing to let them help, but they're watching it and it's hurting them as well. And then that puts them in danger of that. Is It's a never-ending cycle, especially if it was like an argument in a relationship that caused it in the first place. That happens as well. So, yeah, and thank you guys for coming here every week. Today is a busy day. I won't stay on super long with this one anyway because the Misfits are on their charity live stream for 24 hours. For anyone that's in the vape community, yeah, they also have lots of giveaways, but not all the giveaways are vape. Like I saw them give away a ring a little while ago, and I'm going to be on there at 10:30 tonight too Eastern. So, like I said, it won't be a long one, but I did want to touch on this because it's a very important subject. It could save lives, can save your own, not just someone else's this time. We're not talking about trying to pick others up. We're talking about picking yourself up. If you find yourself saying something like, I give up, I'm done, those are trigger words. Those are times for you to reach out and talk to somebody. Find somebody who will just listen and doesn't, not necessarily, they don't even have to really, truly absorb or agree, but if they're a good listener, sometimes all they have to do is listen so you can get it out, because a lot of times you know the answer, you just haven't said it because either fear or you're just confused because you have so much on your plate or just so absorbed in the situation. But most of the time you know the answer yourself to your problems. You know what's going on, but at the same time you're stuck in your own head and you can't realize it. I mean, that's true. I found that over the course of years of being a counselor, that there was a lot of times there where the person that came in, they already knew what they wanted, what they needed, or what the choices they wanted to make. They just were waiting for validation. Validation is something that, truthfully, only you can give yourself and believe it. But sometimes you already feel it. You just don't want to say it. The same goes for when you give up. When you truly do give up, there's a validation factor. You give yourself permission to. Once you give yourself permission to, that's where you're in serious trouble. And that's where if someone doesn't reach out to you quickly, it could easily become too late. And that's the point we don't want anyone to go to. Remember, there's always someone around who loves you, who cares about you. If you've been in our chats, or if you've been in other chats, or if you have a show and people talk to you on a regular basis, or even once in a while, even if you go away for a while, people notice. I mean, might not even have a way to reach out to you because they might not know. I mean, that's another thing. If you don't leave yourself an opening to be reached out to, like say, stop looking at your social media because it's stressing you out. Well, if that's where everybody that reaches out to you is at, you're putting yourself in a position where you don't have a safety net. Who's going to reach out to you if they can't, if they don't know how? And sometimes the people that are going through it with you are in no better state than you are. So if it's something that's affecting your entire family, you don't necessarily have the safety net at home, so you need that external safety net that can maybe shoulder a bigger burden. And if it's a big burden, say a death in the family, something like our Discord, where you can lay it on a bunch of people and they pick it up a little by little, but they all try to help. But it's not all weighed onto one person. Like in a relationship, when you weigh it all on one person, like you're having a terrible day, your wife or husband, they have to deal with it, or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. They're the ones trying to pick you back up. But what if, after a while that wears on them and then they start to feel the pressure? It might happen right away, especially if it's something that affects you both. Or you could have a community of people that care, weigh it on them, and a little bit here, a little bit there, and everybody's kind of like I said before, crowd surfing. You jump off in the crowd and there's one person in that crowd, you're going to probably land on the floor and crush them and maybe hurt one of you, if not both of you. Whereas if you have a full crowd and they're all willing to hold you up, you're going to float around like a butterfly across everybody's hands. It's just easy. And that's the same thing that happens when it comes to mental health and depression and anxiety. If you do it all yourself, or if you do it with just one other person and hold all their weight onto them to kind of keep you up, eventually there's going to be cracks. You might get lucky and it might never happen, but the chances are you're going to have a point where that person or yourself is not able to hold up anymore. So if you can create or be a part of a community that cares about each other, and I gotta give a shout out to the vape community, and many people here know that vape community is full of people that do care about one another. They care. That's the premise of the situation, is caring about your health. I am shutting that off because that is dimming the crap out of me, and I don't like it. So, yeah, the vape community is full of people that went into the vaping to better their health and create, through a harm reduction situation, prolong their life and their livelihood and make their life better. Most of them come from something that, some kind of background or something that wasn't necessarily good for mental health. I don't know how to explain that, but it does tend to be, if you really look at it, and it's sad to say, you know how they talk about minorities and such being the ones that smoke. That's actually less true in my experience, from what I've seen, this is just my opinion, than people who have went into smoking because of the fact they have depression issues and they need some kind of crutch, or they have anxiety issues and they need some kind of something to keep their mind occupied. Those are the people that wind up smoking more often than not. And that's what's in the community mostly. And you might have people that were addicts. There's no better way to say it. They were addicts. Or they had a dependency on something, and they went to vape as an alternative to help them cure their cravings. In a way, that's kind of the way it works with diabetes. It cures your cravings for foods that you can't eat because it's unhealthy for you. In a way, that is a type of addiction, because you craving and you want and you need. But if you can replace that feeling with a tasty vape instead, well, that's harm reduction. And that's one of the few things that actually can help, is just being a part of that community for that. And eventually you might wind up going, like my brother is trying to quit, and he wants to quit. And he's using vape as that gateway to quitting, which is great. And then there's other things such as, I'm going to give a shout out to CBD, because that's something that can help a lot of people that are going through a lot of issues. It doesn't help everyone. Sometimes it makes it worse. But most of the time it helps a lot with anxiety, if you have anxiety going on. Yeah, see, Derek, yeah, and that happens because it gives you something to do. It sidetracks you, and it kind of, if you have any form of ADHD, that caffeine will do it, but also so will nicotine, will help with your chemical makeup in your mind and help you to focus. It works just like medication in a way. It is a type of medication in a way. It's just like having like that cup of coffee in the morning to get going, maybe help you think through your day. It works the same way. And like, I have a highly military based family that's been in the military. Most of my family has been, especially on my father's side. And I mean my mother's side, sorry. My father's side as well, but mostly my mother's side. But we went into the military, and most of them came out smokers. A few quit, but they came out smokers because the mentality there is hurry up and wait. What are you going to do while you're waiting? Pass out the cigarettes. Well, I've talked about this with a few other people that have been in. That's common. You just sit there and wait, and you either pick up smoking, or you're sitting there either bored out of your mind, or even worse, I don't think this happens as much anymore, but back quite a few years ago, used to be, sorry, I got something in my eye, hair or something. Back quite a few years ago, if you were sitting around not doing anything, everybody else is smoking, you'd get pulled in to do the PT duty. Like maybe you'd have to help with rations and stuff, like dinner time. That didn't happen if you were a smoker, because they wouldn't want to harass you. But, oh, you're just standing there bored anyway, come on in. It's like you'd wind up doing extra work. So, I mean, that's an incentive to smoke. I don't want to do extra work for nothing, so why don't I just pick up a cigarette? So that's sad. But this that and plus is the anxiety situation of sitting there. You get bored, you get jittery, and it's hurry up and wait in the military. It's not like slow. So if you've ever been in, you'd understand. But life can be like that too. Does anybody else have a job like that? That maybe they have periods of time where you just sit around, do nothing, twiddle your hands, find yourself getting either anxious or maybe a little bored and depressed? Anytime that happens, you pick up some kind of crutch. Think about the fad of fidget spinners a while back. It sounds ridiculous, but that was almost a crutch for a lot of people. And honestly, how many people still do it? Use something, spin on something, sit there and say, pop in a pen cap, just to fidget. As ridiculous as that sounds, it's annoying to other people around you, but that can be soothing. If anybody has a Kennedy, the Kennedy cap works the same way. So, but it can be soothing to do these reoccurring things or change it up and do different things. That's another thing that can be a positive if you can do something like that. Is there something you like to do? Maybe you ever build a deck of cards where you build a tower out of them? Something like that. I know it sounds ridiculous as you get older, unless you're at a party, you're not going to do something like that. It's not ridiculous. It's a great thing. Putting puzzles together. Even as an adult, these things can soothe your mind in a great deal. And if you have a set of puzzles or something like that you have sit around, it's something you really enjoy when you're feeling well, bring yourself when you're really down, put one of these puzzles together. So when you're done, you're looking at that picture, you go, oh yeah, I like that. All of a sudden, you crack a smile for real, and you're like, oh, that feels good. I see light. There's so many different ways to do it. It's just almost impossible to. Oh, wow. Yeah, tech hours for a story time. There you go. That would be anxiety to me. And boredom, and yeah, that could be. Yeah, like I said, the vaping truck or fundraiser next week to help him through his tough time right now because he can't go back to work. He's not feeling well. He's not doing well at all. And if you have a little time, even if you don't know him all that well, send him a little love. Just say, hey, just wishing you well or something like that. Don't ask questions. Try to make it short and simple, something he doesn't have to answer back because he really isn't feeling well and up to it. But, like I said, a little love can go a long ways, even if it's just from a complete stranger. I know when my brother lost him and his girlfriend had that miscarriage last year. The vape community got together and a lot of them signed his prayer page and put messages on his prayer page, and that made a huge difference to him. In the end, he asked me to thank everyone, and I did my best. And if you were one of those people and you got missed on the thank you, because those kind of things matter a lot. He was just here this week visiting, and he actually talked about it a little bit again. It's something that never goes away. That's one of those other things. If you know something never goes away and you learn to live with it, but it's never. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Stephen. If it's something that never goes away, like me losing my son, that's not going to go away. I've learned to live with it, but I'm not going to say that all days are good. There are days. I have those days, and once in a while it'll hit you out of the blue. And those type of things don't go away. My father's suicide still doesn't go away. Constant. And honestly, last year when he went through that, I wasn't even able to be there as much for him as I usually can be. Because it hit me hard. It reminded me of my son. So it's kind of, sometimes even in the best intentions and the people you can normally go to, given the situation, they might be hit just as hard and not able to respond the way that they would like to. That's why we build a bigger base than we need. It's like, think about trying to build like a flagpole, but you decide to pour a concrete slab the size of like a skyscraper base. It sounds ridiculous, but what happens if you had that smaller one and there's a shift? It could shift a little bit. Whereas you have this big one, as long as you have the rebar and stuff in there to hold it in place, that's not going anywhere. The bigger the base you create, the less likely you are to ever tumble. And within reason. You get too big a base. Sometimes you get it's overwhelming too. So you got to balance as well. So few people do these days. Thank you for such a simple. Yeah, we do. Everybody has a huge impact on everyone else. That's one of the things. If you feel yourself about to argue with someone, maybe you feel a little tension going. Something gets said, and someone doesn't agree with someone, and it goes back the other way, and you get a snappy response instantly. Most of the time, and I was guilty of this too. Go into defensive mode. You start to snap back. Before you know it, you're going back and forth. But if you can early on, or even later on, if you don't catch it in time, is it worth it? Think to yourself, is it worth it? Is there a point to this argument? You'll find that 90% of arguments are not necessary. It's actually just because something was taken wrong, something was said in a way that was taken offensively, some kind of accident. Hooked on Funk. There's someone right there. Like, that guy's got a big heart too. Getting to really, really love that guy. Him and Disco Potato on the 510 Connection. If you haven't caught it, you need to. Just wonderful people. This community's full of them. It's nothing better to say than the fact that there's so much love and understanding in this community, and I want to see it grow beyond the community. I know it can. We just have to figure out the right recipe to have it happen. Have this love, this compassion, this caring and understanding spread. The world could use it right now. This past year has been so stressful. So many people that have never dealt with things before are just dealing with depression and anxiety beyond anything that any normal person should even ever have to handle. When they're not used to it, is even worse, because it's to people like, I don't want to call anyone else out, so I'll say me. Dealing with it on a constant basis to some degree, I've learned to deal with it, so I can kind of cope with it. So if it hits me, I kind of know what to do. Not always the greatest at it, but I do my best. Whereas if you got someone who's never dealt with it, it's a shock to their system. You might as well have shot them. Not fatally, but they got some kind of mortal wound, they feel like, because the depression hit them so hard. When you look at them and you're like, oh, yeah, okay, that's nothing. But to them, it's not. Think about it, losing your first boyfriend or girlfriend, that first breakup. Sometimes that is catastrophic. You can't get over it. You feel like it's the end of the world. It's not. And for those who have never went through that, because there are people, I do have a cousin that actually got married to her first love, so congrats to her, but that usually doesn't happen. You understand that sometimes things aren't just meant to be. And that's something hard to move on from. One of my brothers actually has that problem. His first love broke up with him, and he's not been dealing with it well. Not at all. And they had kids together as well, so he's not been dealing with it well. And it's not the same brother as family is family. Everybody has their own issues. It's not the same brother who lost his daughter, but it's hard for these. It's hard for me sometimes. It took me a while to understand. For him, it feels like almost like me losing my son. To him, losing the love of his life feels that way. Try to convince somebody that you can move on, but yet if they're not ready and they don't let it happen, all you're doing is talking. I might as well be talking to that wall behind me. It's about as equivalent, and it's not as frustrating as it gets when I try to explain that. You got to remember, in their mind, they're seeing it from a different point of view. So always try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Don't think of it in the way you would because of what you've been through in your experiences, but try to think of it from their experiences. It's not easy. It takes a lot of patience and a lot of practice to try and do that. I try all the time. And if I find myself, any of you know me well enough, you'll know that sometimes I'll wonder and I think, is this wrong? Is this going on? Is this going on? And I'll keep thinking if someone's really acting bizarre, off the wall, or something, I will try to think through it and try to put myself in their point of their mindset. And even to the point where maybe it's an addiction issue, which actually happens more often than not. Yeah, everybody mourns differently. Respecting it makes a difference. Exactly. It's all about the mourning. Everybody does it on their own time. Respecting makes a difference. And respecting that is, it's not easy because everybody doesn't go through the same thing. This is even in mental health communities or the vape community, you see it where sometimes people will be at odds when really they're going after the same goal over something. It could be legislation, or maybe just something said that one of them took offensively, or maybe someone said something offensively. It might have been a joke, it might not have been, but it was taken that way. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Try not to think of it through your eyes because you're not seeing what they're seeing. Now, can you do it 100% of the time? Nobody can. But can you get better at it the more you try? Yes, you really can. Yeah. See, Derek's going through it too with the breakup. It's tough. Breakups are never easy. They do hurt, and you physically feel down. And that's when you need good people around you, friends around you, family, I would like to even say, because I don't view anybody as friends in this community anymore. It's been beyond that for a good nearly a year. It's no longer been just friends. It's really good people, really big hearts, and people I'm proud to call family because we care about each other. And I'm happy to say the family grows almost daily. Yeah, listening without prejudice, without and not making judgments. It's really, really hard. And sometimes, even if you're judging at that point and it's something, a big, big subject, and you're feeling like they're wrong, but you're listening. If they ask you your opinion and you know you're feeling that way, just ask them for a little time to think about it. Because if you get a chance to think about it, you really do, you'll probably break it down and start to understand where they're coming from a little better. If you make a judgment call right away and say something, they are going to probably not like your response if you're feeling like you're agreeing with the other people around them that are telling them things. Because if they're coming to you and talking about this, there's probably something you're missing, or you're not looking at it with the, I don't know, how do you say it, like having their sunglasses or their glasses on, seeing it through their eyes. Sometimes you have to distort your own thoughts and your own position to understand what someone else is going through. Very difficult thing to do. Lady Liberty can attest to this. I'm getting better at it. I've gotten a lot better at it. Even in the past, I'd say 5 years, I've made huge, huge strides to get better at it. When it started for me, when I really started to, I've always been pretty good at it.
I hear sound.
Do you hear me?
Yep. Yep. I just can't see you yet.
All right, that should fix it. There, can you see me now? Yes, there I am. All right, so this is one of those dangle clack moments I was just talking about. I forgot to plug in my laptop. That was my own stupidity. I'll take full blame for that. That was just dumb. Hey, Tom. Good to see you here. Yeah, just be there for one another. You can do that. I know a lot of us are going through a lot of things. And the people in the vape community, because they have mentioned it already tonight, the whole community is going through a lot. This postponement thing's a good thing, but we don't know exactly what that entails. They could change it in a moment's notice. It might not happen till later. Enforcement's not in place, so really, truthfully, Some people might have jumped the gun a little bit on the closing shop, but maybe not. It's impossible to make these decisions. And when you're making decisions from an outside perspective instead of internal, it's actually even harder too. But yeah, this family here is just like I was saying, is just one of the greatest. But getting inside the minds of the people that you're not agreeing with to try and understand them, you don't have to like them. You don't have to agree with them. But if you can see it from their perspective, you can understand them and you can either work with them or work around them or maybe even figure out common goals and common terms. But you have to take that time to do it. It's not easy. And no, Derek, you're not alone. We're always going to be here. No, that's the darkest place you can be. Relationships, I'm sorry, but relationships and jobs tend to be the biggest quick stressors. When a relationship ends or a job ends, you can feel completely lost if it was something you truly loved and wanted to do, as far as a job, or if it's someone. He doesn't even have to be someone you really thought you wanted to be with. It's just someone you were comfortable with and you were with for a long time. We hate change, as naturally most people do. Most people do not like change. They invest so much in something they want fruition out of it. You don't. I mean, they say that women are the ones that typically look for forever. I don't know. I kind of wanted it too. I didn't want to just float from person to person to person throughout my life. That was never my goal, even as a teenager. So it's not just women, it's just a person. In fact, I've seen some women that are exactly the opposite. They prefer to just float through life. So it's not really, there's too many stereotypical situations where we sometimes make the mistake of believing that. Think of it as anybody in a vape community, stereotypical things such as, all the way that a lot of people look at vape, a lot of way people look at smoking, the way that we look at legislation. We sometimes make a lot of assumptions on all those fronts, and it turns out to be a very negative situation where it really doesn't. Talking to politicians many times now over the past year or two on a first-hand basis, face-to-face, and through text and emails as well. Most of them are not as bad as we think. There are some. There's instigators. There's people that will start the rumors, start the trend, start the push. But there's a lot of them that just don't know. And they don't have the time to do all that. I mean, think about it. If they went into true research you have to do in the vape community to figure out what the bottom root of everything is, how much time that would take. Now think about the thousands of other things that are just as important that go across their desk every day. It's important to us, but to them, it's just another bill that they have to research. It's more work on their table they might not have time to do properly. That's why stories, this is where you get through. You don't go through. I know we talk about the sciences behind us, and for some people that works. But when legislators get involved, is a lot of times your stories, the health benefits you've experienced, the health benefits others have experienced, that piles up and you start to get this whole mound of all this positives that you can't deny. It has nothing to do with anything. I mean, they don't have to research that to see that. If you got thousands of people in their jurisdiction in a state or county or a city saying that, hey, this helped me this much and this is how. You can't deny that. You can deny science to the end of time, but if these people are all feeling better and all living healthier lives, then what are you going to say? No, you didn't. Oh, really? Here's some medical documentation. This is what my lungs look like before. This is what my lungs look like afterwards. I had COPD. It's reduced or gone. Stop that. That's how you get through to the politicians. I feel like we've kind of been on multiple fronts, fighting lots of fronts, and that's the only front that's really going to move. That's what's going to move more of the masses, and it's what we're going to have to do as we move forward if we're going to change some of the legislation in place. If we're ever going to get back some of the things we lost or prevent future loss, we need to focus on what will work, not just the other. You got to think like the other person. It's unfortunate, but that's kind of the realm you got to be in. If you want to make it through life with as pleasantly, as peacefully as possible, sometimes you have to take the moment to learn what the other person on the opposite side of the coin or other people, other group wants or needs. Now, there are some people, and I am going to say it on here even though I can't stand him. Bloomberg has a personal agenda. You're not going to change his mind. It's his personal agenda. He's trying to make a legacy. Not going to stop that. You can stop him from destroying the situation by going after and talking to the people and explaining to them your story and what it did for you in that way. And outside of the vape community, if you're not a part of the vape community, there's also, that goes for anything. If it matters to you sometimes and it's something that's negative to you, always try to look from their side to figure out. You love Mike Bloomberg? Okay. Good luck. No. I haven't seen him do much, but it's, I mean, like I said, anybody wants to do whatever they want. Never look at the bad side of things. You can love whoever you want. There are so many people that are on the there. If you want to get into it, there's a Trump and Biden debate. You can go there forever. Is it going to change anything? No. Is it going to create a lot of stress and anxiety to fight about it? Yes. Have you seen throughout the country families and relationships torn out about it? Yeah. That's what I thought it was, Tom. But if you did, well, it's a free world. Personal choice. That's what we're all about. But there can't let politics or your beliefs destroy you or your family or your friends. Because in the end of the day, as long as you're not like oil and water, most of the time, you got all these different sections. Think of what makes up a person, the millions and millions of different parts of what your personality is made up of. And you have this one little path, like, say, politics. Oop, I'm Democrat, I'm Republican. Oh, we can't be friends. What? But everything else in your life is fine. No, don't let that happen. Don't let that destroy you. Move on. Find that path. Find that light in the darkness. Because that person might be the one to save your life the next time that you're not feeling well. You don't know that. Always try to look at the brighter side. There is one. In almost every dark situation, there is a bright side to it. You lose your job, if you don't let yourself get into severe depression, there's a good chance, if you keep your eyes open, you'll find something that fits you even better. Or if things are meant to be, you might wind up back at that job. I'm going to use Chris Vandal as an example. He loved his job. They had let him go for certain reasons. I think it had something to do with the company. But he's back there. He loved his job. They loved him. He came back. If it's meant to be, it'll happen. If not, then, well, sorry to say, but if you love your job and you're working hard at your job and doing a great job and they get rid of you, that's their loss because you're being productive for them. They should be sadder than you if you truly are a good worker and you love your job. All right, Steven, I'll talk to you later. I'm going to have to get going here in a minute, too, because I'm going to be on the Misfits in like a half an hour with Big G, I believe, is on the same time as me. Yeah, hate is baggage, and it's heavy baggage. Hate can actually weigh you down and drown you. Think about trying to swim across a lake with a bunch of bags full of money. You going to make it across the lake? Probably not. I'm not talking about money. I'm talking like gold money. You're not going to make it across. It's heavy. And that's what hatred is. Hatred is almost like a form of greed. And you hold on to it, you're only being greedy to yourself to keep that hate. And that's something that I'm saying from the other side of the coin. Because I used to hold grudges. I was one of those people that didn't let anything go. It took some major loss, a few near death experiences, including when I had my wound up having my heart stent put in, to realize hate is not worth holding on to. It's just not. There is definitely a lighter side to look at in every situation. If you look hard enough. Now, you're not going to see it always on the surface. And even it could come down to the fact that the bright side of the situation is you know who you don't want to be around. If it's that bad, well, maybe you need to change up some of your friendships, or maybe even avoid some family members in certain situations if they are nothing but negative to you. It may hurt, but there are times where that relationship needs to at least separate. Maybe not end, but you might need space. It's not easy because you're used to that being a part of your life. Pulling away from that is just difficult. But you have to make that choice in that darkness when you're not seeing the light. If you get around someone and every time you're around them, you feel nothing but sadness and depression or anxiety. And this happens more in relationships where you tolerate it than anything else. Maybe it's time to think about, would you guys be better off? It really sucks. But not necessarily talk about leaving. You could talk about change. Whether or not they feel the same way. Maybe there's ways you could work it out. That's also a possibility. It doesn't mean you have to end it. It means that it would be time to actually try and have an adult discussion about it and figure out what the best course of action is and if there's something that can be done. Because if you're going to be miserable the rest of your life, is that really the life you want? And that goes for you and them. If they are miserable on a constant basis and you actually are happy with them, if you really care about them, are you really going to want them to go through misery if you know they're really not happy? Tough decisions. Not always a right or wrong. It's 50-50. It's a 50-50 situation. I mean, there's rights and wrongs to every decision. Just do your best and be happy with the fact you tried your best. I mean, we all make mistakes. We're human. That said, I am going to start closing up here. I love you, fam. Thank you for coming out tonight. Tom, Derek, Steven. And earlier I saw Duchess in here. You know, your family. Hooked on Funk was in here. It's important. Need you guys to understand, or gals, to understand life is too short to hold grudges, and it's also too short not to try and be peaceful. You can fight all you want, and you might even enjoy the fighting, but in the end, what do you have to show for it? Oh, I won. Unless it's fighting for a cause, that's a different situation. Always be willing to fight for a cause. If it's something you believe in, that's a different situation. But to fight for the sake of fighting is not necessary. Yeah, same thing, Derek. If you need anything, you know where I am. I'll be on there until 11:30, and if anybody wants to talk tonight, I mean, maybe later, for Lady Liberty's birthday before it gets too late. She's gonna hate me saying this, but maybe we'll open up the Zoom for everybody to come in and say hi. She's gonna kill me for saying that, guys, but we'll do it. Maybe I'll just
I'm gonna beat you.
Pop on a surprise live in the middle of the night. So if anyone's up, and I know Derek doesn't sleep unless he's working. So, all right. I love you guys. Please stay safe. Be happy as you can be. And if you need anything, you got the Discord. You can direct an advocate for liberty at Gmail is probably the best way to make sure that I see it, because I don't get a lot of messages there. I love all of you except for Duchess. He's a bum. But he makes damn good coils. All right. Love you guys. You have a good night. And please, just be happy. And if not, try. Love you. Bye.